So the war in Ukraine has now lasted for almost 10 months. The Western allies, remember, before the beginning of the war, simply had not anticipated the scale of this conflict. But today, the ongoing Russian war in Ukraine is the primary cause of domestic and international wars for the European nations. Now, despite the many problems at home, the United States and its allies have been backing Ukraine to the hilt. And not just in words, but also in action by supplying ammunition and defense equipment. But now, when the war is now in its 10th month, the United States and its European allies, it appears, are struggling to continue to provide artillery and other kind of ammunition to Ukraine. And they're also scrambling to replenish NATO's stockpile of weapons. What is interesting to note that the United States of America, which is the biggest exporter of weapons in the world, according to some reports, is falling short on the weapons that it is supplying to Kiev, and is unwilling to divert weapon exports from its delicate regions such as Taiwan and South Korea, where China and North Korea are also constantly testing the limits of the American resolve. Now, the United States is looking at supplying older and cheaper weapons, which would be easier to export. The West, interestingly, is now encouraging Ukraine to be more efficient with its artillery fire and not fire a $150,000 missile at a $20,000 drone that is sent by the Russians. The US military is concerned about the shortage of the 155mm artillery shells and has got, according to reports, a limited number of guided rockets, rocket launchers and howitzers. Now, analysts have also said that this will, of course, take up to 5 years for the United States to replenish the stock of the 155mm shells. Now, the West is trying to find alternative solutions to substitute the shrinking shortage by requesting longer-term contracts from the Western defense industries. The countries are urging that more workers must be employed and that the older weapons factories should be refurbished to increase production. NATO has shown interest in investing in old factories in the Czech Republic, Slovakia and Bulgaria, and this is to restart the manufacturing of the Soviet-caliber 152mm and the 122mm shells for Ukraine's Soviet-era artillery armory. Although NATO nations have provided Western artillery to Ukraine, such as the standard 155mm shells, many nations at this point of time cannot seem to sell arms to a country which were produced by another country for war. An example is when the Swiss denied Germany's permission to export to Ukraine the ammunition that was made by Switzerland and sold to Germany. The countries have provided large funds for the war in Ukraine. France has delivered several advanced weapons and has funded nearly about $208 million to Ukraine for the purchase of arms. But France has flushed out up to 20% of its existing artillery and is now reluctant to provide more. The European Union has approved about $3.2 billion to its member states for providing Ukraine with its supplies. But the European Peace Facility Fund is already 90% depleted. NATO nations have delivered weaponry that costs about $40 billion. This is the size of France's annual defense budget. The NATO officials have said that the amount of artillery that is being used is staggering, as Ukrainians fire about 7,000 rounds of artillery in a single day. And its allies, the United States, produces about 15,000 rounds each month. But Ukraine still remains pretty desperate for air defense against Russian missiles and Iran-made drones. Now, Russia is also facing its depleting stock of artillery. Moscow is trying to ramp up military production as the country fires about 40,000 rounds per day. It is planning to purchase missiles from North Korea and also cheaper drones from Iran. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.